Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadesha Tarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gauravaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. What verse is it?
What verse? Haribo? 3940?
Fourth canto, 430, 3940.
Okay.
3940. You can hear clearly? No problem?
Yes.
Okay.
39.
39 and 40. What was the
Preceders.
The preceders.
430.
Yeah. Maharaj is finding in the computer.
Okay, here we go. 3940. Jnana svadhītaṁ guravaḥ prasāditā viprāś vṛddhāś sad-ānuvṛttyā āryā natāḥ suhṛdo bhrātaraś sarvāṇi bhūtāny anasūyayaiva jnana su-taptam tapa etad nirandhasāṁ kalam adabram apsu sarvam tad etad bhumno ranimahe te paritoshanaya. Okay.
Dragi gospodine, proučili smo vede, prihvatili duhovnog učitelja i odavali poštovanje brahmanama, naprednim bhaktama i starim ličnostima koje su duhovno vrlo napredne. Odavali smo im svoje poštovanje i nismo zavidjeli ni jednom bratu, prijatelju ili bilo kome drugom. Također smo se podvrgli oštrim strogostima u vodi i dugo vremena nismo uzimali nikakvu hranu. Sva ova naša duhovna dostignuća su jednostavno ponuđena za tvoje zadovoljstvo. Molimo samo za taj blagoslov i ni za šta više. Smisao. U Srimad Bhagavatamu je rečeno sam si bir haritošana. Pravo savršenstvo života je zadovoljiti svevišnju božansku ličnost. Veda je sarvāṇi ahameva vedyaha. Da bi se shvatile vede, mora se shvatiti svevišnja božanska ličnost. Nakon mnogo rođenja, onaj ko zaista shvati gospodina, predaje se gospodinu. Sve te kvalifikacije nalazimo u pračetama. Podvrgli su se oštrim strogostima u vodi i dugo vremena nisu uzimali nikakvu hranu. Vršili su strogosti ne radi materijalnog blagoslova, već da bi zadovoljili svevišnja gospodina. Možemo se baviti bilo kakvim poslom, materijalnim ili duhovnim, ali svrha treba biti zadovoljenje svevišnje božanske ličnosti. Ovaj stih predstavlja savršenu sliku vedske civilizacije. Oni koji se uče da postanu bhakte moraju poštovati ne samo svevišnju božansku ličnost, već i one koji su stariji u znanju, one koji su arijci i pravi gospodinovi bhakte. Arijac je onaj koji se ne hvali i koji je pravi gospodinov bhakta. Arijac znači napredan. Ranije su oni koji su tvrdili da su arijci morali biti gospodinovi bhakte. Na primjer, u Bhagavad Giti 2.2 Krišna je uporio Arjunu rekavši mu da govori kao ne arijac. Shri Bhagavanu vača putastva kašmalam idam višame samupastitam anarya društam asvargyam akirtikaram Arjunam. Svevišnja božanska ličnost Bhagavan reče: Dragi moj Arjuna, kako su te snašle te nečistoće? Ne priliče čovjeku koji poznaje napredne prednosti života. One ne vode višim planetama, već nečasnosti. Arjuna je, iako je bio kšatrija, odbio da se bori uprkos tome što mu je svevišnji gospodin neposredno to naredio. Zbog toga ga je gospodin izgrdio, rekavši mu da govori kao onaj ko ne pripada arijskoj porodici. Svako ko je napredan u predanom služenju gospodina svakako zna svoju dužnost. Nije važno da li je njegova služba nasilje ili nenasilje. Ako ju je gospodin odobrio i ako je u skladu sa naredbom svevišnjeg gospodina, mora se izvršiti. Arijac izvršava svoju dužnost. To ne znači da su Arijci bespotrebno neprijateljski raspoloženi prema živim bićima. Arijci nikad ne održavaju klanice i nikad nisu neprijatelji jadnih životinja. Pračete su vršili oštre strogosti mnogo godina, čak u vodi. Prihvatanje strogosti i pokora je zavetovani posao onih koji se zanimaju za naprednu civilizaciju. Riječ nirandhasāṁ znači bez hrane. Žrljivo i bespotrebno jedenje nije posao Arijica. Naprotiv, proces jedenja se treba ograničiti što je više moguće. Kada Arijci jedu, oni uzimaju samo propisanu hranu. U vezi s tim gospodin kaže u Bhagavati 9.26. Patram pušpam halam toj ami bhakti obrajačati. Tada kam bhakti upakritam ašnami prajatat manaha. Ako mi se za ljubavlju i devocijom ponudi list, cvijet, voće ili voda, prihvatit ću to. Tako za napredne Arijice postoje ograničenja. Mada sam gospodin može jesti sve, on ograničava svoju hranu na povrće, voće, mlijeko i tako dalje. Ovaj stih tako opisuje djelatnosti onih koji tvrde da su Arijci.
Finish? Okay. So this verse mentions a lot of activities that are generally accepted as spiritual.
Ovaj stih govori o aktivnostima koje su spiritualne.
Yeah, so we have studying the Vedas, accepting a guru, respecting elders and brahmanas.
Znači, studiramo Vede, prihvatamo duhovnog učitelja i počitujemo starije osobe i brahmane.
It mentions lack of envy.
Isto tako spominje se nedostatak zavisti.
It mentions doing severe austerities in the water and not eating food. Oops.
Objašnjava kako štedimo vodu i ne jedemo puno hrane.
So these are what kind of somewhat spiritual, but not necessarily spiritual.
Ove su malo spiritualne, ali nisu baš spiritualne.
And in fact, we see in Bhagavatam also, Krishna says, I'm not so much interested in studying the Vedas, in doing austerities and fasting and vṛddhāś, etc.
Krishna kaže da nije baš zainteresovan da pravi te štednje, da te postave u Srimad Bhagavatam.
However, there is a way of spiritualizing these activities more.
Ali ima način tako da se spiritualizuju ove aktivnosti, da se produbove.
And that is to somehow relate them to the Supreme Lord.
To je da ih nekako povežemo sa središnjom božanskom ličnosti.
So many of these activities described here are part of the conduct of dharma or varnashram.
Većina od ovih aktivnosti koje su spomenute ovdje su dio dharme i varni ashrama.
Yeah. And because they're mentioned in the Vedas, there we can say spiritual, and they help to purify us.
Zato što su spomenuti u Vedama, oni možemo reći da su duhovne i namijenjene su da napredujemo, da nas produbove.
At the same time, Bhagavatam clearly says that if you take to the process of bhakti, you can give up all of this dharma.
Bhagavatam kaže da ako prihvatimo proces bhakti, možemo da se otkažemo od dharme.
This, of course, is quite shocking for many people who are attached to following the varnashram system.
To je tako šokantno za neke ljude koji žele da slede varnashrama sistem.
So even if you want to worship the Lord, how can you not follow dharma?
Želiš da obožavaš središnju božansku ličnost, kako možeš da ne slediš dharmu?
However, this is clearly stated in Bhagavatam. Bhakti is superior to dharma.
To je već objašnjeno u Srimad Bhagavatamu da je bhakti superiorna nasproti dharme, prema dharme.
And of course, dharma, the goal of dharma is artha and kama.
Cilj dharme je artha i kama.
If we want to get superior to that, we can go for moksha, liberation.
Ako želimo da idemo iznad toga, idemo prema mokši, oslobođenju.
So this is the process of jnana yoga.
To je proces jnana yoga.
But Bhagavatam clearly says that Bhakti yoga is superior to both karma yoga and jnana yoga and astanga yoga.
Bhagavatam kaže da je Bhakti yoga superiorna nad sve ove druge, ashtanga yoga, karma yoga i jnana yoga.
So if you're qualified for Bhakti, you're no longer qualified for those lower activities.
Ako si već kvalifikovan za Bhakti, ne trebaš da se podvrgavaš tim ostalim jogama.
And therefore, you can give them up.
Sad ih možeš odreći, zato ih se možeš odreći.
Does a person who gets a PhD in mathematics have to go back and keep studying 1 + 1 = 2? No.
Kao neki doktor matematike da treba sad da se vrati i opet proučava 1 + 1 koliko je.
Of course, we see that many devotees, many pure devotees, they are practicing bhakti, but they don't give up varnashram.
Ima mnogo bhakta koji prakticiraju bhakti, ali ne otkazuju se od varnashrama.
The reason is they set a nice example for people who don't do bhakti.
Ali to je zato što žele da ostave primjer, da budu primjer za oni koji ne prakticiraju bhakti.
Yeah. So we have Yudhishthira and his brothers, we have Ambarish, we have Dhruva. They follow all the rules, not because they're attached to them, but to set an example for others.
Evo imamo kao primjer Yudhishthira, Dhruva, Maharaj, oni isto slijede te principe, ali samo da bi ostavili da budu kao primjer.
Of course, there are some people like Rishabhadev or Maharaj who give up all the rules completely.
Ima nekih koji se otkazuju svih principa.
So, therefore, we clearly distinguish between the process of bhakti and karma yoga, varnashram, dharma.
Zato moramo da Can you please repeat?
We clearly distinguish between bhakti and varnashram, karma yoga, and dharma. Of course, in the beginning of Bhagavatam, it says that this Bhagavatam rejects all cheating dharmas. Yeah, of course, we can say, how can the Vedas and Dharma be cheating? But of course, we see, Krishna says, these are all flowery words of the Vedas. So flowery words means the activities and the goals of karma yoga, varnashram, etc. look very attractive. Yeah. Of course, we know that some attractive flowers are also poisonous. Yeah. So therefore, people are allowed to practice varnashram, but it is not the best process. And thus at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna rejects all dharmas. That means he rejects karma yoga, jnana yoga, and astanga yoga in favor of bhakti. Of course, there is a way in which these other dharmas like karma yoga and jnana yoga become acceptable. And that is that we offer these activities and the results to Krishna.
ponudimo rezultate i ove sve ove aktivnosti Krišni.
So in other words, we direct everything, even if they're material activities. Somehow we relate it to pleasing Krishna.
To znači da ako sve materijalne, čak i materijalne aktivnosti ponudimo Krišni i povežemo sa Krišnom.
Yeah. In the varnashram system itself, if there is no worship of Vishnu or Krishna, those activities of varnashram and dharma actually don't give any results.
Ako u varni i ašrami se ne obožava gospodin Višnu Krišna, onda nema rezultata od njih.
And even if you do jnana yoga and you refuse to worship the Lord or offend the Lord, you cannot get liberation.
Čak i ako prakticiraš jnana jogu i ako nekako vešaš to, ne nudiš to sve gospodinu, onda ćeš navrediti gospodina.
So the conclusion is that karma yoga, jnana yoga, and ashtanga yoga ultimately depend on bhakti yoga. And then we can say the logical conclusion is that bhakti yoga is not dependent on karma or jnana or ashtanga yoga. So if people insist, yes, bhakti yoga, very nice, but you also have to do karma yoga, varnashram, etc. Otherwise, bhakti is a waste of time. So that is misunderstanding. The Bhagavatam clearly states that bhakti, even Bhagavad Gita clearly states that bhakti is independent of everything else. So even in karma yoga varnashram, there must be worship of the Lord. Otherwise, we can't even get artha and kama properly. We used to say you can't get in karma yoga, you can't get artha and kama unless there is that bhakti. But we don't call this karma yoga bhakti yoga as equal because the element of bhakti yoga is small. Little. Okay. And the main interest is not to develop prema or even to get liberation. It's to stay in the material world and be comfortable. And people will worship the Lord, Supreme Lord Vishnu or Krishna, because if they don't, they can't get their material comfort, so they do a little worship also. So it's a little bit of bhakti, and it's also mixed bhakti. It's not pure bhakti. So we can improve on that by doing these activities of varnashram, which include a little bit of worship, and then offer all the results to Krishna. So then we will say, well, okay, this is bhakti yoga, but no, it's not. See, the activities of varnashram consist of following your rules of varna and performing certain rituals. And for the brahmana and others, there are rules of cleanliness, etc. Bhakti is something different. It's hearing about the Lord, chanting the Lord's name, and worshiping the Lord. So of course we can purify these activities of keeping clean and following your varna rules, etc., by offering to the Lord. But still, the activity itself is quite different. Another way of saying this is that the activities of bhakti, hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping the deity, arise from the chit shakti or sarup shakti, internal energy of Krishna. The activities of varnashram karma yoga result from the gunas of material nature, so they're quite different. But of course, we can modify these activities and offer them to the Lord, so this purifies them. But that is not enough to get us to spiritual world and get prema. So it is definitely mentioned, if you want prema, you have to do pure bhakti. Now that means doing these activities, hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. Even if we forget varnashram and we only do hearing, chanting, remembering, but it is mixed with other desires, we don't get prema. So therefore, that is why in the Nectar Devotion, at the very beginning, Rupa Goswami gives a definition of pure bhakti. That is, by that pure bhakti in sadhana, we get to bhava and to prema. If we do mixed bhakti, we don't get prema. If we just do varnashram and karma yoga, we get svargaloka if we do a little bhakti, little bhakti. And if we do our varnashram activities and we offer the results to the Lord, maybe go to brahmaloka. So therefore, we have to distinguish very clearly bhakti from all the other processes. And we have to distinguish pure bhakti from mixed bhakti. So that is why we need some knowledge. We chant Hare Krishna, it is also independent, but to get prema, we need some knowledge. That knowledge is there, so we practice pure bhakti and we chant pure name. So pure bhakti and pure name does not mean we have prema. We're doing sadhana. And we still have an arta, so we're not really pure. But in our practice of bhakti, we are attempting for that purity. If we don't attempt for that purity, then we end up with mixed bhakti and we don't get prema. So, if you want to be a brain surgeon, then you have to fix your goal on that particular brain surgeon goal.
Ako želite da postanete, da operirate mozgove, onda trebate da se fokusirate na to, da postanete to.
So if you say, yeah, I want to be a brain surgeon, but you start studying other things, then you don't become a brain surgeon.
Ako ne studirate samo to kako da postanete neurohirurg, onda vi nećete postati ako studirate neke druge stvari.
So that is why we need proper knowledge of the goal and proper knowledge of the sadhana.
Zato trebamo znati da imamo pravo znanje za cilj i pravo znanje o sadhani.
Yeah. And just to get the sadhana straight, we need some philosophical knowledge also.
Kako bi dostigli sadhanu, moramo imati filozofsko znanje.
So the content of scripture is these three things: sambandha, avidya, and prayojana.
Što znači trebamo znati sambandhu, avidiju i prayojanu.
And we see that Srila Prabhupada endeavored to give this knowledge to the devotees.
Prabhupada nam je dao to znanje već.
We have many popular spiritual movements, many coming from India, but where is the sambandha, avidya, prayojana? Where is the scriptural reference? Nothing.
Imamo puno druge koje su procese, ali oni nam ne daju sambandhu, prayojanu i avidiju.
Yeah. So they can get some goal, but they're not going to get prema.
I oni mogu dostići neki cilj, ali neće dobiti premu.
Of course, devotees can also say, prema is too far. Why should I strive for prema?
Neke bhakti bi rekli, zašto prema je tako daleko, zašto bi se trudio da dostignem premu?
But that's the whole goal of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to deliver Krishna prema to all the people of Kali Yuga.
Ali to je cilj Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, da donese premu svim ljudima u Kali Yugi.
Lord Chaitanya is not preaching, go to Svargaloka or get liberation.
Nije samo propovedanje da idemo na Svargaloku ili da se oslobodimo, da dobijemo oslobođenje.
In fact, he's not just preaching prema, he's preaching Radha Krishna prema. Very, very rare.
I nije samo da dobijemo bilo kakvu premu, nego Radha Krishna premu, koja je jako, nije baš, koja je jako retko.
So, to attain that specific goal of Radha Krishna prema, we have to follow very specific process.
I kako bi dostigli tu Radha Krishna premu, moramo da slijedimo jako specifičan proces.
So, therefore, we have scriptures to help us.
Zato imamo spise da nam pomognu oko toga.
So, we talked about this, rules of varnashram, etc. And then the best of doing that would be to offer the results to Krishna.
Zato kad radimo sve svoje dužnosti, moramo misliti kako da ponudimo rezultate Krišni.
So, therefore, these activities which have their source in the material gunas become spiritualized.
Tako da sve ove aktivnosti koji je izvor materijalne gune, moramo kako da ih produkovimo.
The activities of bhakti are already spiritualized. They come from Krishna himself.
Aktivnosti bhakti su već duhovne zato što dolaze od Krišne.
They're already, by their very nature, offered to Krishna before we start them.
Oni su već ponuđene Krišni i pred da počnemo da ih prakticiramo.
So this is the difference between all other activities and the activities of bhakti.
To je razlika, to je glavna razlika između sve ove aktivnosti.
So the devotee should have this understanding when they practice bhakti.
To znači bhakta mora poznavati, imati to znanje kad praktikuje bhakti.
So, as I said, if one is qualified for bhakti, he's qualified for that, and therefore he's no longer qualified for karma yoga or jnana yoga or astanga yoga.
Kad je neko kvalificiran za bhakti, onda nije više kvalificiran za ostale ove joge, ashtanga yoga, karma yoga i jnana yoga.
Again, nectar devotion, in the very definition of pure bhakti, says that it is possible that you can still do karma yoga or jnana yoga, even ashtanga yoga, as long as they do not contaminate and obstruct the pure bhakti. So I previously explained that Yudhisthira and Ambarish and Dhruva were following Varnashram also, and they were doing it to set an example for others, not because they were materially attached. So the danger of mixing these other processes with the bhakti is that we also begin to contaminate the goal of pure bhakti. So in doing karma yoga, then we start developing material goals. We do jnana yoga, we start striving for liberation. Of course, even that is superior to doing karma yoga or jnana yoga or ashtanga yoga. Yeah, so definitely we can get more than Svargaloka and we can get more than liberation, even with mixed bhakti. Yeah. So then what we get more than liberation. Well, we can get Vaikuntha. But we don't get prema. So this is what, half? We're getting half results. So we can get Salokya, planet of the Lord. We can get Sarupya, we get spiritual body. But because of that mixture in our bhakti, the impetus to serve the Lord is diluted. And therefore we exist eternally in the spiritual world with a spiritual body, with a relationship with the Lord, but very mild. And at the best, we get some sort of shanta relationship with the Lord. Yeah. So according to our practice, we get different results. Yeah. So karma yoga gives one result, jnana gives another result, mixed bhakti gives one result, pure bhakti gives prema. Yeah. So scripture is there to encourage us to go for the highest goal, prema, not the other goals. And it also teaches us the method, pure bhakti. So we have to learn this. That means we chant the name, Nam Sankirtan is the process, but we need enough knowledge to practice pure chanting and pure bhakti. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Any questions?
Hare Krishna.
you, Maharaj, for the wonderful lecture today and these past days. So I have a question regarding the Abhideya or Yukta Vairagya, because from some devotees I heard that this is an important process, important part of the sadhana, but also there is mentioning that Rupa Goswami didn't actually put emphasis on these two. So if you can maybe enlighten a little bit. Thank you. Pitanje vezano za Yukta Vairagiju, odnosno od nekih bhakti sam čuo da je to jako važan dio procesa sadhane bhakti, a sam zapravo čuo da Rupa Goswami nije stavljao veliki naglasak na ta dva aspekta.
Yeah. So there is one verse there in Nectar Devotion that mentions about Yukta Vairagya and Falgu Vairagya.
Ima jedan stih u Nektaru devocije koji baš priča o tome, o ove dvije vairagije, Yukta Vairagya.
Yeah. So this is because Vairagya itself is said to be not a part of Bhakti and can actually be unfavorable for Bhakti.
Znači ove vairagije, oni mogu da ne budu kao doprinos, da budu kao doprinos razvijenja čiste bhakti.
So then Rupa Goswami says, well, the impersonalists and Gyanis and yogis, they practice this Falgu Vairagya or false renunciation. Yeah, they reject material objects and the actions of the senses because it's material, it leads to material impressions and karma. Whereas those practicing bhakti are also renounced, but they use the senses, the body, and objects of this world. So that's called Yukta Vairagya. That means in engaging the senses and using material objects, the devotee remains detached for himself because he's offering everything to Krishna. So pure bhakti, when practiced, then it is automatically Yukta Vairagya. If we're doing everything for Krishna, for Krishna's pleasure, that means we're not attached to anything for ourselves. Of course, we go on, we surpass detachment from material objects. We replace that with complete attachment to Krishna. So vairagya or detachment from material objects is automatic with the development of bhakti.
Any other question?
Thank you.
Okay, if there is no more question, we'll end up the class here.
I have one more question, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
Maharaj, you were also speaking, and thank you for going into details about this mixed bhakti and pure bhakti and everything. So maybe this question is a little bit kind of
we'll see. But what if a devotee has a desire to worship Krishna purely, has a desire for a pure devotion, pure bhakti, but is maybe unable to perform, or is performing mixed bhakti? What will happen in the end? Is there a final destination, or there's always a space for improvement, or is it desire what in the end counts, or how to? I hope you understand the question.
Yeah.
Translate.
Ako možeš prevesti?
Pa zapravo pitanje je vezano za tu miješanu bhakti, pomiješanu bhakti i čistu bhakti. Ako bhakta prakticira pomiješanu bhakti, ali ima želju
Is this Jordan, the one who took us to the... Sounds like Jordan, the guy who took us to the gym.
Rezultat toga je postoji neko konačno odredište ili se gleda samo želja ili se gleda kako je prakticira.
Well, it depends on what you mean by mixed bhakti. Now, I assume that devotees all know āryā abhilasha shunya jnana karma jnana is a very basic verse. And when we chant Hare Krishna, we're not praying for get me a television set, get me a wife, get me a child, get me a house, etc. And when we're practicing bhakti, we're not trying to get to svargaloka, we're trying to develop unconditional love for Krishna. However, because we're doing sadhana, we're not 100% pure. If we were, we would have prema. So in the process of sadhana bhakti, we have anartas, we have, bhajana kriya, anartha-nivritti, nishta, ruchya, sakti, and bhava. So in that stage, the anartas are present, they get less and less and less. So there's a minimum of anartha and bhava. Before that, there's more anartas. So in that sense, we could say we're not practicing pure bhakti because we still have anartas. So, sadhana by its nature means it's not pure in the sense that we're devoid of anartas. We have anartas, but by the practice of pure bhakti, we gradually reduce the anartas. So, pure bhakti in sadhana means that, yes, we have anartas, we're not really pure, but at least we have an understanding that when we worship the Lord, we're not going to pray for material benedictions or liberation. So, persons that read this and okay, āryā abhilasha sunya, I'm not ready for that, so I'm going to practice bhakti and I'm going to pray for some material things. So, yes, that's mixed bhakti. So then he gets to svargaloka and he's still got some desires and he's still a devotee, and so he practices more bhakti and he still has material desires. So he goes to brahmaloka. And if he still has desires then, and he practices bhakti, Krishna becomes very merciful, and he can take him to the spiritual world and get rid of all of his desires. But he ends up with salokya and sarupya, without prema. of course, hopefully, in his whole progress over many births of practicing bhakti with impurities, he will meet devotees and become inspired to practice pure bhakti. And then, of course, he ends up with prema.
Thank you.
Je li ima drugih nekih pitanja?
Hare Krishna, ovdje Padamanuttama Dasa. Evo, ako bi Maharaj mogao reći neka svoja sjećanja na Srilu Prabhupada. Hvala.
Padamanuttama Prabhupada asked if you can share some experiences that you had with Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah. I mentioned the other day that, I had some contact with Prabhupada but I was a newer devotee. Senior devotees were devotees who had been in the movement for 5 years or more, or 6 years maybe. So they got more direct contact with Srila Prabhupada. However, in spite of that, I did get the opportunity to speak to Prabhupada directly. I get some instructions from Srila Prabhupada, and of course, I went with Prabhupada to India when he first went there with the devotees, and traveled with Prabhupada for some time there. So during that time, Srila Prabhupada was always completely absorbed in two things. One was preaching and trying to establish centers, in that time in India, of course. And the other was he was absorbed in translating and commenting on books like Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. So he would occupy his day doing either of these. So, of course, we see that the result of that was, of course, that he was able to establish temples in India and around the world, and also translate and comment on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And the conditions were not so favorable. Yeah. Now, Prabhupada, very great devotee, he goes to India and he asks somebody, a big wealthy man, you please give me some land. They didn't give him anything. Of course, he did get some land in Vrindavan and Hyderabad, but then for Bombay and Mayapur, he had to purchase. Yeah. And where he got the money from? Because devotees in America were distributing books, so he got money from that, and he used that to purchase land in Mayapur and Bombay. So though India now is very, very prosperous, at that time, ISKCON was prosperous in India, at that time, it was quite a struggle. So Prabhupada had to import devotees from America and other countries. And he had to use money from other countries to purchase land and build temples in Mayapur and Bombay and Vrindavan and other places.
u Indiji.
Of course, Prabhupada had a vision for India, and of course that has been fulfilled because India has become very strong in terms of the devotional service.
Prabhupada je imao viziju o Indiji I uspeo je u tome.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Thank you, Maharaj. Da li imamo nekih drugih pitanja ili ja da ga zamolim za sutra, ako može da drži lekciju? Connecting with this previous question and answer, somehow Prabhupada was always encouraging us that we can do it, and Lord Chaitanya also, that we can do this process in one lifetime. And somehow or other, wherever we are, if we do our best somehow and follow, the point is we just need the mercy. We cannot do it by ourselves. So it's like, it's always stressed the mercy of Guru and Krishna, that it's possible to get prema, to reach the goal. So even if we are not perfect, of course no one is perfect in material love. So somehow how to get this mercy, because without mercy it's not possible. So that you don't have to spend so many lifetimes in material love.
So, power of Krishna's name is there, mercy of devotees is there, and definitely we can never predict the great results that will come from that. And thus we see examples like Mrgari the hunter, in 3 months he got bhava. On the other hand, we see other examples, for instance, Bharat. Bharat got to bhava, then he became a deer, then he became Shadbharat, then he got prema. So it took him 3 lifetimes, from bhava to prema. And of course, Bharat was a descendant from Manu, so he had extra Shakti also. So the progress may be quick, it may be slower. But even if it is slow, it is much quicker than doing a process like karma yoga, jnana yoga, or ashtanga yoga. Yeah, and it may take many birth times, but still, that is relatively quick when we look at all the endless births we've had in the material world. The guarantee is that when we start bhakti, we continue bhakti until we get perfection, even if it takes many lifetimes. So, in Nectar Devotion, Rupa Goswami says that there's a quick process that is mercy. We call that Kripa Siddhi. But he says also that is very rare. So we can always pray, I'll be the rare example. But we should also continue with our sadhana. So in Bhagavatam it is said that devotee who, experiencing all of his difficulties in the material world, he continues his process of bhakti without hesitation and accepts all the difficulties as simply his karma. As a result of that, he gets the mercy of the Lord. So, if we can continue our bhakti very faithfully and with determination for this life and maybe next life and next life, then we can expect the mercy of the Lord. There's a careful balance between mercy and endeavor. And that is represented by Mother Yasoda tying up Krishna, and every time she got rope, the rope was 2 fingers too short. So our acharyas, I said, what are these 2 fingers? Why too short? So the answer is that one factor to make the ropes come together is endeavor. The other is mercy. So Mother Yasoda was very, very determined and put forth a lot of effort to tie up Krishna. She got more rope and more rope and more rope, and she labored for hours to make the rope longer. And Krishna finally, seeing that Mother Yasoda was getting very tired, he said, okay, I will get tied up. So he gave mercy. And then 2 fingers disappeared and she could tie up the rope. So in the beginning, no, Krishna was not merciful. He was looking at Yasoda. Yasoda was trying and trying. But after he saw Mother Yasoda's endeavor, which was a devotional endeavor also to tie him up, then Krishna became merciful. So we can get the mercy of Krishna by putting forth very, very sincere endeavors of service.
Any further question?
Is someone else? Da, Nandini želi da pita nešto. Āryā, if you want to money margin, you can go. Ne, da ti pitaju. Ja sam već jedno pitanje. But Maharaj, I would like to very much thank you for clarifying all these very important points. The one point which struck me very much is that only Bhakti, which come from Krishna, and all other yoga processes, they come from three gunas. So I would like to hear a little bit more about that. Ja sam pitala da je ova poanta da samo Bhakti dolazi od Krišne, a svi ostali yoga procesi dolaze iz tri gune. Pa sam htjela pitati Maharaj ako možeš nešto reći o tome.
So in nectar devotion, bhakti is described in the bhava stage as being a combination of chit shakti and hladini shakti. And 11th canto of Bhagavatam, Krishna says that jnana yoga arises from sattva guna, material guna. So, varnashram and karma yoga arise from tamagun and rajagun. Yeah. So, therefore, those things in the gunas, karma yoga, jnana yoga, stanga yoga, cannot really get you out of the gunas. Yeah. So they depend on bhakti.
Can you repeat the last sentence? I didn't hear you. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, so jnana yoga, stanga yoga, and karma yoga depend on bhakti to give their results. So even the jnani, of course, jnana gives liberation, but if a jnani offends the Lord, he cannot get liberation. Yeah. So this also means that Mayavadis and others who say, well, we worship the Lord, but the Lord has a material form and a material body, so therefore ultimately we worship the Lord to get purification, but ultimately reject the Lord. That is offense. Therefore, those jnanis cannot get liberation.
Any further question?
Hare Krishna. I wanted to ask one question about this Varnashrama is even by what Chaitanya said, it's superficial and like this. But Prabhupada also said that he didn't do whole work, that he still has to establish Varnashram. This he left for further generations to make it. So suppose it's supposed to be Varnashrama, devotees to do it. But still, Varnashrama is like not something which can give you prema. So let us, if you can say something about this.
Yeah, 1 second.
Varnashrama is meni pa je gospod Četanje rekao da je to površno, most razgovore s nama nadarove, da nije to cilj za Bhakti. Ali Prabhupada je rekao da nije napravio cijeli posao, da je pola ostalo svojim učenicima da napravio da ostvari tu Varnashramu. Do duše božansku, ali svejedno Varnashramu, pa ne znam da Maharaj nešto kaže o tom.
So though Prabhupada made that statement, it's also a little bit unclear. Does Prabhupada want the devotees to practice varnashram, or is he telling the devotees to go out and establish varnashram for people in general? Yeah, those are quite different goals for devotees and for karmis. And then, what is the varnashram that Prabhupada says it has to establish? Does it mean the varnashram of Bhanu? Yeah. So that varnashram is basically what we call smarta dharma, which Prabhupada also criticizes. So then we can say, well, Daiva varnashram. But then what is Daiva varnashram? Okay. So of course, Daiva varnashram means doing varnashram, and at least we're worshiping Krishna in there. So if we do that in ISKCON, that means we make a little bit of worship of Krishna and a lot of varnashram. That doesn't sound logical. And if we try to establish varnashram for the people in general and have a little bhakti, we can't even get the general population to a little bhakti. What to speak of following 4 regulator principles and practicing varnashram? So that's even more difficult. So then, so what does varnashram mean? One place Prabhupada said, varnashram means chanting Hare Krishna. So that, of course, is there, and we're trying to encourage everybody to chant Hare Krishna, so maybe that's varnashram. If we simplify varnashram to its simplest principles of varnashram we want to follow, maybe we can say, follow 4 regulator principles. But even that actually isn't varnashram, because only the brahmanas do that. The kshatriyas are allowed to intoxicate and take meat and have women and whatever. So then, even that doesn't seem to be real varnashram. So then there's another attempt. Okay, let's establish varnas in ISKCON. But then, of course, Bhakti in Bhagavatam also says there's no offense to think of devotees in terms of Brahmana, Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Sudra. So why we want to give them names? And of course, definitely we don't want to do it by birth, and we designate this one as a Brahmana, and then his son becomes a Brahmana, his grandson becomes a Brahmana. We don't want to do that either. So who establishes and how do we establish who is what Varna? So that itself may be a very difficult task to do because people will disagree. Say, I don't want to do that. I want to do this instead. Or everyone may just opt out and say, I want to be a brahmana, so I won't do the work, you have to support me. Or I'll be the sudra, I don't want to think anything, I'll just wash the dishes. Yeah. So it's rather difficult to say what Prabhupada meant by establishing that varnashram, for who, what rules to follow, etc. And if we spend all of our time doing that, then that takes away from our endeavor to practice pure bhakti also. So in any case, we should never disregard or make the main goal of our movement insignificant.
Any further question?
Onda, ako nema pitanja, mogu ga Maharaj, would you be able to give lecture also tomorrow? Morning?
Tomorrow morning, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hare okay. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Krishna.